The months that followed became some of the happiest Victoria had experienced in years. Not because her problems disappeared. Life didn't work that way. Bills still arrived. Work remained exhausting. There were still difficult days. But now she no longer faced them alone. Marcus became a constant presence in their lives. At first, Victoria worried that the closeness would feel unnatural. Instead, it felt effortless, as if he had always belonged there. Every morning began with a text message. Every evening ended with a conversation. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they simply sat together in comfortable silence. For Victoria, even the silence felt healing. For years, she had carried every burden alone, every fear, every disappointment, every decision. After her divorce, the apartment had often felt unbearably quiet after Melody fell asleep. There had been countless nights when Victoria sat alone at the kitchen table long after midnight, worrying, crying silently, trying to figure out how she would pay rent, how she would afford school supplies, how she would keep moving forward when she was already exhausted. There had been nights when she felt invisible, as though the entire world was moving forward while she remained trapped in survival mode. Marcus changed that, not by solving every problem, but by sharing them. And somehow, shared burdens felt lighter. When Melody got sick, Marcus was there. When Victoria had a difficult day at work, Marcus listened. When self-doubt crept into her heart, Marcus reminded her who she was. Strong, brave, extraordinary, the woman he had never stopped loving. One rainy evening, Victoria found herself watching Marcus and Melody sitting on the living room floor. The two of them were building a castle from cardboard boxes, a project that had somehow taken over half the apartment. Melody wore a paper crown. Marcus wore an even larger paper crown. And both were laughing so hard that tears streamed down their faces. Victoria stood quietly in the doorway, her heart overflowing. A year earlier, she could never have imagined this scene. For so long, she had believed happiness belonged to other people. People with perfect lives, perfect families, perfect circumstances. But now she understood something important. Happiness wasn't perfection. It was presence. It was having someone who stayed, someone who chose you every day. And Marcus chose them every day. One night after Melody had fallen asleep, Victoria and Marcus sat on the balcony overlooking the bay. The moonlight shimmered across the water. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Neither spoke for a while. The silence felt peaceful, comfortable, like home. "Do you ever think about that night on the highway?" Marcus finally asked. Victoria smiled. "The rainy night? The one that changed everything." She laughed softly. "I think about it all the time." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Sudui." Victoria leaned against him. "You know what scares me?" "What?" "Sometimes I wake up afraid this is all a dream." Marcus turned toward her. His expression softened. "Tori." "Yes?" "You spent years surviving." He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You're allowed to be happy now." The words struck deep, because happiness still felt unfamiliar, still felt fragile. Yet every day, Marcus made it easier to believe she deserved it. The following weeks passed peacefully. Then, one beautiful Saturday morning, Marcus suggested a family trip to the bay. The weather was perfect. The sky was clear. The ocean sparkled beneath the golden sunrise. Melody ran ahead collecting shells along the shoreline. Victoria walked beside Marcus, their hands intertwined. The gentle sea breeze carried the scent of salt and possibility. Everything felt unusually calm, unusually perfect. Victoria noticed Marcus growing quieter, thoughtful, almost nervous. She smiled. "What's going on?" Marcus chuckled. "What makes you think something is going on?" "Because I've known you since I was 17. Fair point. But he didn't elaborate. A few minutes later, Melody came running back toward them. "Mommy, Mommy, what is it, sweetheart? Look at the sunrise." The little girl pointed excitedly toward the horizon. Victoria turned. The sight stole her breath. The entire bay glowed with golden light. The water looked like liquid gold. The sky burned with shades of orange, pink, and crimson. It was breathtaking. And then she heard Melody gasp. Victoria turned back. Marcus was no longer standing beside her. He was kneeling. On one knee, her heart stopped. For a moment, the entire world seemed to disappear. The ocean, the sky, the beach, everything faded. There was only Marcus. Only the man who had found her again, after 12 years. Only the man who had slowly healed parts of her heart she thought were broken forever. Marcus looked up at her. His gray eyes shimmered with emotion. Tori. His voice trembled slightly. The confident billionaire was gone. In his place stood the boy who had once loved her beneath a summer sunset. The man who still loved her now. Before you answer, I need you to hear something. Victoria could barely breathe. Tears already filled her eyes. Marcus continued, For years, I thought losing you was the greatest regret of my life. His voice cracked. But now I understand something. What? He smiled. Maybe life wasn't separating us. Maybe it was preparing us. Victoria pressed a trembling hand against her mouth. Marcus reached into his pocket and revealed a small velvet box. Inside sparkled a beautiful ring, but Victoria barely noticed it. She was too focused on his eyes, on the sincerity she saw there, on the love. Tori, you gave me my first real love. He swallowed hard. And without realizing it, you gave me my second chance too. A tear slid down Victoria's cheek. Marcus smiled. You and Melody became the family I didn't know I was missing. He looked toward the little girl standing nearby. Melody was practically bouncing with excitement. Then Marcus looked back at Victoria. Every morning I wake up hoping I get another day with both of you. Every night, I thank God that rainy highway existed. His voice became softer, more vulnerable. I don't want a future without you. I don't want another sunrise without you. I don't want another chapter of my life where you're missing. The tears flowed freely now. Victoria wasn't even trying to stop them. Then came the question she had dreamed of, without allowing herself to admit it. Victoria Heiss. Marcus opened the ring box completely. Will you marry me? For a moment she couldn't speak. She looked at Marcus, then at Melody. The little girl suddenly shouted, Say yes, Mommy. Victoria laughed through her tears. Marcus laughed too. The innocence of the moment made it even more perfect. Victoria thought about the lonely nights, the heartbreak, the fear, the years she spent believing love had passed her by. Then she looked at the man who had never stopped finding his way back to her. Yes. Her voice broke. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Victoria smiled. Yes. Melody squealed loudly. Victoria laughed again. Then she whispered the words Marcus had waited 12 years to hear. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Marcus stood and slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into his arms. The sunrise glowed behind them. The ocean waves rolled gently onto the shore. And Melody cheered, as though she had just witnessed the greatest moment in the history of the world. Perhaps she had. Because some love stories aren't about finding someone new. They're about finding your way back to the person who was always meant for you. As Marcus held Victoria close, she realized something she would never forget. The rainy highway hadn't been the beginning of their story, and it hadn't been the end. It had simply been the road that finally led them home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe true love can find its way back, even after many years apart? Your answer may inspire someone who has almost given up on love. The months that followed changed everything. Not overnight, not magically, and certainly not without challenges. Real love rarely works that way. Instead, it grew quietly, one day at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice at a time. Marcus never tried to rush his way into Victoria's life. He understood that trust wasn't something that could be bought, no matter how much money a person had. Trust had to be earned, and so he earned it. Patiently, consistently, especially with Melody. At first, the little girl was shy around him, but children have a remarkable ability to recognize genuine kindness. Marcus attended her dance recitals. He showed up at school events. He spent entire afternoons helping her build sandcastles on the beach. When she fell and scraped her knee, he was there. When she won a small school art contest, he celebrated like she had won an Olympic medal. Little by little, he stopped being the nice man with the shiny car. He became Marcus. Then he became family. One evening, several months after their reunion, Victoria stood in the doorway of Melody's bedroom, listening to her daughter say her bedtime prayers. The little girl folded her hands and whispered softly, "Thank you for Mommy." Victoria smiled. Then Melody added something unexpected. "And thank you for Marcus too." Victoria felt tears fill her eyes, because in that simple moment, she realized something profound. Love wasn't only about romance. It was about showing up, about staying, about making someone feel safe. And Marcus had done that every single day. Meanwhile, Victoria's own life was changing in ways she never imagined. For years, she had convinced herself that her dreams were over. That art belonged to another version of herself. A younger version, a happier version. But Marcus refused to let her believe that. He encouraged her to paint again, not because he wanted to rescue her, but because he believed in her talent. More importantly, he helped her believe in herself. Months later, her first gallery exhibition opened in the city. Victoria had been terrified, convinced no one would come, convinced no one would care. She couldn't have been more wrong. By the end of the evening, every painting had sold. Every single one. As reporters and guests congratulated her, Victoria looked across the room. Marcus stood quietly in the corner, not seeking attention, not taking credit, simply smiling, proud of her, the way he always had been, the way he always would be. For the first time in years, Victoria no longer felt like she was merely surviving. She was living, truly living. 9 months after that rainy night on the highway, Marcus asked Victoria and Melody to spend the afternoon at the old pier, the same pier where their story had first begun, the same pier that had appeared in her painting, the same pier that had witnessed both their first kiss and their goodbye. The sunset painted the ocean gold and crimson. Waves rolled gently against the wooden supports. Melody ran ahead collecting seashells, completely unaware that history was about to repeat itself. Marcus slipped his hand into Victoria's. "You know," he said softly, "I've been thinking about something." "What?" "The last time we stood here," Victoria smiled. "I've thought about it too." Marcus looked out toward the horizon. "For years I believed you were the one who got away." His voice was calm, reflective, but I was wrong. Victoria turned toward him. "What do you mean?" Marcus faced her fully. His eyes shone with emotion. "You didn't get away. You were becoming exactly who you were supposed to become. You were raising an incredible daughter. You were surviving things most people couldn't survive. And maybe I needed those years too." Victoria felt her heartbeat quicken. Something was happening. Something important. Then Marcus slowly lowered himself onto one knee. Victoria gasped. A few feet away, Melody's eyes grew wide. The little girl immediately dropped her seashells. "Oh my gosh!" Marcus laughed through his nerves. Then he opened a small velvet box. Inside was a ring that caught the fading sunlight and scattered it like stars. "Victoria Hayes," he said quietly, "you were my first love. You were my greatest regret. And you became my greatest blessing." His voice trembled. "For 12 years, life kept leading me forward. But every road somehow led back to you." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me?" Tears instantly filled Victoria's eyes. She looked at Marcus, then at Melody, then at the ocean stretching endlessly behind them. Every heartbreak, every struggle, every lonely night, every sacrifice, every disappointment, all of it had somehow brought her here, to this moment, to this choice. And for the first time in a very long time, she wasn't afraid. "Yes," her voice broke. "Yes," Marcus smiled. She laughed through tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Melody squealed louder than either of them. Marcus slipped the ring onto Victoria's finger, then pulled her into his arms. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, the three of them stood together while the waves crashed gently against the shore. Not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because they had found each other again. And sometimes that is enough. 3 months later, they were married on that very pier. The ceremony was simple, beautiful, honest, exactly the way they wanted it. Melody proudly walked down the aisle as flower girl. Guests laughed. Guests cried. Even Marcus cried during his vows, which became the favorite story at family gatherings for years afterward. A week before the wedding, Marcus officially adopted Melody. When the judge asked if he understood the lifelong responsibility he was accepting, Marcus answered without hesitation, I've understood it since the day I met her. And he meant it. Because real family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's defined by love, by commitment, by showing up every day and choosing one another. Years later, when people asked Victoria how she and Marcus reunited, she always smiled. She would tell them about a rainy night, a broken-down car, a chance encounter. But privately, she knew the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was courage. The courage to love again after heartbreak. The courage to trust after disappointment. The courage to believe that happiness was still possible. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Because sometimes, life gives us a second chance. Not to relive the past, but to create a better future. A future built from everything we've learned, everything we've survived, and everything we've become. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. And most importantly, tell us in the comments, do you believe true love can find its way back? No matter how much time has passed, your story might inspire someone who needs hope today. Until next time, remember this. Sometimes the people meant for us are not lost forever. Sometimes they're simply finding their way home.